So, suffering is another word for stress. In the eastern part of the world, it's really called suffering. And most of the mystics and sages and the people have talked and worked on eliminating suffering. So, the purpose, one of the key desires for enlightenment is to stop suffering. In the West, it's more so stress, which is just the form of suffering. Now, let us look at suffering in depth. What is it? So, we have situations that could be painful situations, but how we respond to that, how you meet your painful situation. So, this your psychology and your emotional response towards that situation that you consider to be painful, how that is can create suffering. So if what happens is that if you have a painful situation, again, it is why me? Why do I deserve this? How will I do this? I'll never get ahead. It's just blame. And there's a lot of shame in that too, that did I create this? And anger because what if somebody imposed it on me? So there's all these situations we create and suffering increases. Now, when we create suffering, what happens is that we lose our ability to work with the situation because we get so possessed by the suffering itself that we don't know how to work the situation.
Yeah. Suffering for me is, when you were talking, this thing came to me. Suffering for me is roo. You know, like me. Why me? It's suffering is such a ego mind, basically, because you so attach everything to why me. You don't break out from that shell.
Yeah.
See, pain is real. You could have accident, you could have cancer, because we are mortal bodies. We are going to die. The system's going to break eventually. There's so much stress out there. There's electronic stress. There's other stresses which takes toll on your body. So pain is real, but suffering is all mind's creation, and it's you could expand it as much as you want, and people keep on expanding and dwelling on themselves. Suffering is just a mind's condition. That's all. Nothing simple. And the more you dwell in it, the more you keep adding to it. So the idea is, you have pain, you have a situation, you deal with it. You go to a doctor, get treatment, but once you get into the mind frame of why did it happen, when you start to analyze it, you don't need to analyze anything. These are like moment to moment situations. You live your life from moment to moment. Suffering is just such a heavy mental baggage that you could never get rid of it. It goes on with you. And another interesting fact, it doesn't end with your life. You'll go on to your next life. You'll carry the same baggage with you. You will be born like a big crying baby again. So get over it.
Yeah, so get over it now. It's actually really interesting. Not to make light of it, because people consider it to be painful, but it really should be made
but it's
light
not
of.
painful. Like,
Yeah,
it's
not.
It's not painful.
Yeah.
You need to cut them short,
Yeah.
because another thing is, sorry to cut you off, but another thing is where people try to sympathize with people,
Yes.
right? There's somebody who's suffering and is, yeah, I'm going to sympathize. You give them it's not, you're not helping anybody out. You should cut them short. You should tell them, you know what, I've heard your story enough. Do this. You have pain, go to a doctor. You have, take medication, do meditation, change your track. The more you listen to somebody, the more you sympathize, you're actually adding on to the misery. Yeah.
And suffering is learnt behavior. Once we realize that, once we recognize that, it's game over. If you just watch or examine your own patterns, the way you suffer, the words you're saying, how you're thinking, you've learnt this. Either you were taught by someone or you were trained in this. There's no way that you have picked it up from anywhere else. You're mimicking a behavior pattern of the elders or of a culture. So if suffering is learnt behavior, then why can't we unlearn it? But we have not focused on unlearning it, because not many people believe suffering to be real. And they've justified themselves. Somehow there's great sort of martyrdom in pain. The more pain you have, the better person you become. Well, pain doesn't purify anybody. Let's get real. It stresses you more. So there's no need to suffer. So why not just examine and say, where am I using these statements? Why am I thinking like that? Oh, yeah, my mother did it. My grandmother, my father used to do that because it's all mimicked behavior. So let us just get real and examine our behavior. Let us be responsible and let's not blindly keep crying wolf every time or and suffering ends with that because you can unlearn this pattern very quickly and then there is no suffering and you never create a situation that you can't deal with and deal with the situation and do it responsibly.
You know, a real spiritual sense in every moment, because we live moment to moment, there is no suffering. You could see it, you could examine yourself. In each and every moment, there's no suffering. It's suffering just a mind's condition. So once you connect to your source, there is no suffering. That's totally eradicated.
So let us eliminate suffering.